One, two, three, four.
You are listening to SKYLIT, the SKYLIT Books podcast. SKYLIT Books is a general interest bookstore in the Los Feliz neighborhood in Los Angeles. You can shop with us from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. or visit us online 24/7 at skylitbooks.com. Follow along at SKYLIT Books Instagram and Twitter. You can subscribe to the podcast on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Thank you for listening, and now on to the episode.
Hello, my beautiful and lovely listeners, and welcome to SKYLIT. This is a SKYLIT Books podcast, and I'm your host, Lance Morgan. Today, I'm so excited to welcome Steven Van Dyck to read from his new book, People I've Met from the Internet, followed by a conversation with the both of us. But before I introduce him, I want to remind you that the SKYLIT Books is now open for in-store browsing. We are following the CDC mandates, so please bring a mask and please be respectful of your fellow customers and the staff there. But come on by, we're so excited to see you. You can also always shop online 24/7 at www.skylitbooks.com, where you can do both curbside pickups and shipping. Steven Van Dyck is a writer, artist, and educator whose first book, People I've Met from the Internet, came out in October 2019 on Ricochet Editions. The book has received praise from Miranda July, Chris Kraus, Dodie Bellamy, John Ricci, and D.A. Powell. Ziziva magazine called it the ultimate memoir for the digital age. Van Dyck's work has also been written about in the Gay and Lesbian Review, LA Weekly, the Atticus Review, Full Stop Magazine, the LA Review of Books, Hyperallergic, and on Dennis Cooper's blog. An MFA graduate of Integrated Media, Critical Studies, and Experimental Sound Practices at Cal Arts, Van Dyck has performed and presented works all around Los Angeles, including Lace, MoCA, LACMA, and Human Resources. Since 2008, Van Dyck has curated the Los Angeles Road Concerts, all-day arts events where over 300 LA artists and locals have reimagined unused outdoor public space along the entire lengths of LA's very long streets. Steven, I'm so excited to have you on. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited.
Oh, I'm so excited too. This is going to be great. You have a reading for us today?
I do.
Perfect. I'll let you take it away.
Okay. So as you know, this is a list of everyone that I've met in person from the internet from 1997 to 2009. And so this is an annotation. I usually read from the beginning of the book, so I'm going to change things up and read a longer annotation from still in the first third of the book. So this is the annotation for Quinn Kelly. Quinn and I first bonded in the main chat of the AOL Albuquerque M4M room, joking about the screen names of older men like NM Rimmer, ABQ Top for You, Boy Gemini, and Bye Married Guy, whose screen names were always at the bottom of the chat list, meaning they had been in the chat room the longest, possibly for weeks or months. They mostly ignored my messages. Did they forget to log off? Sometimes they did respond begrudgingly, but disappeared when the topic shifted away from sex. It seemed as though the M4M room was the gay capital of Albuquerque for a time. A username named EmpowerABQ entered the room every night to advertise a new nonprofit hangout place downtown for 18 to 29-year-old gay men to learn about safe sex. The guys in the chat room discussed new music releases like they all somehow liked the same random things, including Tori Amos, when I still didn't know her music. And every night for at least a week, they talked about Madonna's Frozen. It was that summer, driving through Tennessee on a family road trip, that From the Choir Girl Hotel made so much sense to me. Tori wanted to know why screaming in cathedrals couldn't be beautiful and why there had to be a sacrifice. Quinn had a deep voice on the phone and a way of responding that let you know he was agreeing with you because he really did, and not only because he wanted to. The first 2 times Quinn and I met, he picked me up at the street corner and we jerked off in a parking lot in his car. I came on his upholstery. Quinn, pale white with a goatee, tucked in black shirt and combat boots, could have been military personnel. Quinn was homeschooled after he brought a gun to his high school. He was expelled and spent a week in the Albuquerque D home, the detention center. Quinn also once told me in confidence that he woke up from a night terror holding a loaded gun to his head. Quinn used to steal computers and was never caught. My parents and I went once a week to a family counselor, Gary Swenson, who often sent 1 or 2 of us back to the waiting room so we wouldn't talk over each other. One time, alone in the waiting room, I found a photo of Shirley Manson in a magazine, so I ripped it out. When my parents returned, they said I had vandalized Mr. Swenson's magazine and demanded I give him back the ripped page. I couldn't abandon Shirley Manson's eyeliner or leave any part of my bedroom walls blank. If it wasn't her face, I didn't feel like I had any face at all. I ran out of the building and walked several unfamiliar blocks through downtown Albuquerque. From a gas station payphone, I dialed 1-800-COLLECT and the number to Quinn's parents' house. Quinn picked up, probably our 4th meeting in person. Quinn picked me up, probably our 4th meeting in person, and drove me back toward the mountain to my house. My parents were already there waiting for us. They had beers with Quinn while I sat in the other room on the computer. Quinn and I liked to play a game where one of us would get in the trunk while the other would drive to a random location, and then the one who rode in the trunk would get out and try to guess where we were. Quinn and I rewatched the Eurythmics music video collection on VHS so many times, I had a kind of memorized commentary I'd rehash to new viewers. Look at her pointy bra, I'd say, or who would wear a leopard print coat to the zoo? The day I got that VHS was the same day my mother died. Watching all 21 Eurythmics music videos was the last thing we did together. My mother hardly said anything through those 2 hours. I never told her I liked boys, but I later wondered if watching Annie Lennox in a giant white wig screaming, "I need a man," was my coming out. It was 2 days before Christmas, the first day of winter break. My mother and I had just been to my friend Valerie's house, so she and I could exchange Christmas presents. Valerie and I already knew what we got each other because we'd told each other what to get. I got the Alanis Morissette Unplugged CD, which I never listened to all the way through. I don't remember what I got for her. Afterward, my mother and I headed to Coronado Mall to buy me new pants at the Gap. We drove down Manal Boulevard past mini malls and old record stores. At one point, I noticed the car was going toward the median. I looked over and my mother appeared to be passed out, her body leaning toward the door, hanging from the steering wheel like a windsock. I repeatedly jerked the gear back and forth, trying to move it to P, something I had been shown how to do years before. In an instant, we hit another car head on. After the impact, there was silence and time felt very slow. My teeth didn't feel right, so I pulled down the sun visor to open the mirror. I looked over and my mother leaned against the steering wheel as if she were asleep. People stores in the nearest mini mall. A woman helped me out an office phone to call my father, and then the woman led me to a wall where we sat together. My mother's car and another car were crunched up against each other in the far lane, that my mother would be okay. An ambulance arrived in front of a State Farm Insurance agency and defibrillate. She hadn't been wearing her seatbelt. I had my middle finger in my mouth, scratching at the shapes of each tooth to see which got chiseled. I found out later that my collarbone was broken. At the hospital, a man brought us my mother's body, and my first reaction was
Start.
We drove down Manal Boulevard past mini malls and old record stores. At one point, I noticed the car was going toward the median. I looked over and my mother appeared to be passed out, her body leaning toward the door, hanging from the steering wheel like a windsock. I repeatedly jerked the gear back and forth, trying to move it to P, something I had been shown how to do years before. In an instant, we hit another car head on. After the impact, there was silence and time felt very slow. My teeth didn't feel right, so I pulled down the sun visor to open the mirror. I looked over and my mother leaned against the steering wheel as if she were asleep. People came running out of various stores in the near. I used an office phone to call my father, and then the woman led me to a wall where we sat together. My mother's car and another car were crunched up against each other in the far lane. The woman put her arm around me and told me not to worry, that my mother would be okay. An ambulance arrived and my mother was laid out on the sidewalk in front of a State Farm insurance agency and defibrillated. She hadn't been wearing her seatbelt. I had my middle finger in my mouth, scratching at the shapes of each tooth to see which got chiseled. I found out later that my collarbone was broken. At the hospital, a man brought us to my mother's body, and my first reaction was to laugh. My father shed a single tear, the only time I saw him cry. That night, I dreamt I was standing in line at a cafeteria. My mother came up to me in line and said, "Don't tell your father, but I'm still alive." The next day, my mother's spiritual healing friends came to our house, and one told me my mother had spoken to her, that she was still with me, that she loved me. Another said she saw my mother fly across the room toward the ceiling and vanish.
Wow, what a powerful part of the book to read. Thank you for sharing that part.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, where to start from there? I feel like it's a hard follow. No, thank you again for reading
The
that.
book is not always, it's not always
No,
serious as that.
no, but I feel like, it exists in both places. Like, it's very, that's a scene. You know what? Let's start off with a question for you. I feel like this we're, how am I going to phrase this? I'm still like very emotional from that. I feel like we're in a generation that, exists in a weird place where we're on the internet. Like we made so many connections on the internet, especially young, queer closeted people who had nowhere else to turn and knew that it was secret. Was in your book is about that in a way that makes me think that you always wanted to write this. Is that true? Was it something that you were like, one day I might I'm going to keep a record of this even in my mind so I could share this one day?
I think I've always kind of lived life in a little bit of like a story way, where I just find somebody or something interesting and I move towards it. And I think, a lot of the time I just I think that I don't know what I thought was the reason why I wanted to meet someone, but they just interested me, and it's like, oh, I just want to see that person's bedroom, or I don't know, like sometimes, I mean, that's maybe a kind of kooky thing to do, but
no, I think it's more normal than, it's not, it's normal in like a very young, cool, like I've met people become friends with on the internet. I feel like a lot of people meet them because it's like it's a way to find people like-minded who are like-minded with you and just like share interests. But like, was it when in the 97 when you were starting to do this, did it feel like, new territory for everyone, like a shared newness?
Yes, yeah. I think back then, there was no precedent for meeting someone from online in person. So we were figuring out how to do it each time. At the time, straight people were not meeting through the internet like gay people were.
Yeah.
And that they really started a long time later. And I feel like maybe they don't realize that sometimes. But yeah, I think that it was just exciting to be in this space where there weren't any rules set yet.
And I mean, it's the way you described that was very like Wild West, like, which, what is pretty true. It's like it was the Wild West. I mean, I feel like, and not to age myself, I feel like I was like when you saying 97 to 2009 in your adulthood, I feel like that was when I started, and it also felt like, the Wild West in a way where like, I don't know, I feel like I was at the tail end of MySpace into like, Tumblr was when I got into adulthood. And Tumblr also felt like that because it was like, oh, here's a bunch of horny queer kids talking to each other for no reason, about nothing important, but like also very important things to us back then. Um, do you, in your book talks about it, but like, how important was that to you, that space, that online world?
Well, I think it just came just in the nick of time for me because it was like I was 14. I had just turned 14 when we got the modem. And suddenly it was just like I had just become sexual, like, and got the internet, and like, I don't know, it worked out perfectly that it might have seemed to my parents like I was addicted because I needed to go on there to have like who I was like reaffirmed somewhere, and that was the only place.
And looking back on it now, do you still think of it as a place like that? I mean, the internet's changed so much, and like, I mean, I feel like the growing like more adult, you feel like, oh, I don't need to hide as much behind the internet as I did when I was that young. But like, how does it, when you look back on it, do you feel that same like connection to the internet?
Well, back then it was like I uh, I got on there and I was seen differently. I desired and I felt desired. I was no longer alone. Like there were real queer people, not just like a couple TV characters. There were people I could see myself becoming like. Now it feels very scripted, going on the like meeting people through apps, and I feel like the more exciting, the Wild West feels like going like and like cruising in a park or something.
Yeah.
And but also now like, you know, like things weren't necessarily better then or better now, because now like teens are filming their coming out moments to post to TikTok, and then there's like a whole community to like jump in and support them if something goes wrong. And I think that in 1998 I got like the very early primitive 1.0 version of that. But yeah, I don't know.
No, I mean, you're right. Like the in-person meeting is now like oh, what? This is crazy. How do we do this? Like, how do we talk to someone? Like if I wanted to like, ask someone out for drinks or something, I'm like, I have to do that in person. What does that mean? What does that look like? No,
Right.
it's very, I mean, and look at the age of, how many kids are on TikTok and how many kids are on Instagram and I don't know what their apps they use. They probably have like secret apps that we haven't heard of yet.
I had a student who she wrote an essay about how her best friend she met through the app Kick.
Oh yeah, I remember
and
that app.
yeah, I know it went away. I
Yeah.
never would have thought that. I don't know. It's not an app I would have thought she would have used, but she said that she met her best friend who lives in Australia, and that friend became her like person that she like leaned on the most through all these trials and tribulations that she went through. So
Oh, wow.
I was like, wow, that's amazing. And
No,
very,
and
yeah.
I mean, I love that because I remember Kick as like Kick was a big hookup app back in the day too, where and so I'm glad someone got, actual genuine like connection that sticks today from that. That's
Right.
good. I mean,
Right.
and there was,
Yeah.
yeah, no, I
Things.
mean, there were so many ways to like connect. I mean, there was even back then, like the AOL of it all. I got remembered watching the show Pen 15 that like you could do that AOL chat where you like just talk to strangers you've never met who are in the area, which is like I forgot about that. Like that's how much the internet's changed since those days. But like in writing this book, did you have to revisit some of that? Like not even like who you were back then, but like what technology looked back then?
I was so glued to it that
Mm.
I didn't really forget anything. And
Mm.
I also, the way that I wrote this, I started writing it when I was in my early 20s, and then I like put it away and then pulled it out later. So it does seem like people have had a reaction like, wow, your memory is so amazing. And it's like, well, I actually just like wrote down a lot of the details a lot earlier in time. And then more recently, I feel like a better writer in me like fixed everything and made it a lot stronger. But, yeah.
No, I mean, it feels like the better way to write. You know what? That's a good writing tip for all the listeners out there. Write down everything now, become a better writer, and then write the book. Write what you want to write. That I'm being fully genuine too when I say it like I'm taking note. I'm gonna write that down later too. No, I mean
Yeah.
and looking back on like all the stuff that you've written about it, how was that as like a self-reflection moment in the writing process of like having to like, talk to the younger version of yourself?
Yeah, I think like the me that was going through all of these events hadn't. I think for me, your question is about grief, because that's the thing that really like changed when I really was thinking about everything as a writer, is like, oh, this character is going through a lot of grief. And I think at the time I was just like underwater. Like I was not seeing how I was feeling as a 16 or 17-year-old. Um, and but I think that you still get a sense of that through the writing. Like you can really tell that this character has a lot of feelings. Like stuff about mothers comes up, and the details that are selected can be, the way it's written, it's like you can really apply a lot of, you can look at it through a lot of lenses, because it's not really telling you exactly how to feel, but like the same moment could be read as both humorous or tragic, depending on how you're reading it. But I think that the character, this is I sort of went on a tangent, but the character is revealing a lot of feelings through the details that are selected. And I think that was for me how I bridged the feeling state of me then with me now. And I definitely, yeah, I definitely see that era differently now than I did at the time.
And do you think that's like, you know, healed in any way, helped healing a lot of, you know, that back then, the trauma of everything happened, and also the, you know, the pain, that drowning feeling that you were talking about that you had? Do you think that like you were able to even not even heal as much as realize the healing that you've already done through all of it?
Yeah, definitely the writing process helped me to heal. And I think also it helped me to like go back and be in that space. And yeah, um, yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, yeah, that's good. I'm happy that it helped in that way for you. And there's no good way to transition into this. So I'm not gonna come up with a good transition for it. But your book talks a lot about sex too in a really powerful way, I think, because like it's not it's honest. It's honest about sex in a for like that for your age, that you're, you know, like the evolution of it too, the way that like it's not something that like it's like to watch you treading through water, kind of like learning about yourself in that way, learning about sex, which is, you know, very honest. How how was that, looking back on that for you? Like just like, and you know, being so like honest about it too. That must have been like a interesting thing to, you know, put out there.
Yeah, I feel like I was just writing about life, and sex
Mm.
happened a lot.
Oh
And
yeah.
I think I don't know why people hesitate so much to describe sex. You know, it's part of our culture of prudishness or something.
Yeah.
Um, but it's like kind of the setting is just sex.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
like I think some people read the book. I have a relative who was like, why don't, like, you wrote a book that is like, it's alienating to like straight men. And I was like, well, maybe it's not for them then. I don't know. Or and I think that also for her, she kind of, I think, well, she's my sister-in-law. She was like, she's much older than me, but she was worried about me, I think, in general, and um, sort of saw the sex as like turning to promiscuity because I didn't know how to cope with my problems or something like that. And I was like, no, I don't think that that's true. I think it's more like, uh, I said something like, have you ever been on a long plane ride and like had a good chat with somebody and you felt like best friends by the end? Like
Yeah.
all kinds of intimacy can take place that last, you know, when you're with somebody, even just for a few hours. Like
Hmm.
connection and a lack of connection can happen at any length of time, I think. But uh, yeah, I don't know. I think that like my creative energy in that time was like often in a sort of sexual mode. Like interesting conversations sometimes only happen when people have like really let their guard down, and sometimes sex can be like the way in. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean that it makes sense. I mean, it's a vulnerable thing. It's something that like you have to be vulnerable with your partner's part, not to, you know, monogamize. Did I make up that word? I'm sticking with it. Dictionary.com to reach out to me.
A good
No,
word.
it's a good word. It's a good word. But yeah, you have to be vulnerable, and in that vulnerability stuff comes out. Yeah, and it's interesting to me that like your sister-in-law said it's alienating to straight men, because so much of media is for straight men, and like no one else feels alienated by it, right? I mean, we've had to accept that for so many years. Why can't they accept, this?
Yeah.
Straight sex has been on TV for years, but you talk about any other kind of sex, any queer sex in any kind of context, and then it's like, this isn't for us. What? And they go crazy. It's actually a really funny thing to me to see like the straight people, specifically straight men, cisgender straight men, go crazy the second that they see anything that's not focused towards them.
Right.
So thank you for being a part of that movement to make cisgender straight men go crazy.
But like, it's also, I didn't write it in like a horny way at all.
Right.
In fact, most of the sex is written in a really ugly way. And people might not know that just like seeing the book like on a store shelf or something. But like, yeah.
No, I mean, and it doesn't seem horny. It doesn't seem horny. It doesn't seem like,
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
No. I mean, listen, nothing wrong, right? Anyone who wants to write a horny book, please, you have my blessing. Please send it in. I'll read it. I'll love it probably. Please write it. Please make it queer though. But like, I'll love it. But like, I feel like there's this stigma where any kind of like non-cis straight sex is inherently like seen as promiscuous, is seen as horny, is seen as, oh, they're just being sexual in a very crude way, where it's like, no, it's sex exists for many different ways. In many different ways it can be told. Like doesn't have to be, it's important. It's a part of life.
I think that we're at our communities are at an advantage in terms of like, oh, like being a slut is okay, more okay, and some things only turn up in a slutty setting that help you or anyone to evolve sometimes. And so I feel sort of thankful for that in retrospect. Like, who would I be? Where would I be without having had a lot of these meetings and people that I've known?
And I feel like, I mean, experiences like yours and, experiences like yours you've told, that are being told and being very visible, is helping like younger generations who, don't realize the privilege they have, privilege of like, being the world being a little bit more open, a little bit more safe for them to tell their stories. I'm not saying a lot, I'm not saying it's 100%, but like a little bit more, because it's so visible now for them to even like the things I see on TikTok where like people talk about like younger people, like, and by that I mean like 18-year-olds, 20-year-olds, teenagers are talking about just like their own journey in that way, that like, I feel like for older generations it took a second. We were hidden, we had to hide a lot of like those things that we wanted to talk about, but then like, these kids are able to be open about it. So it's interesting to see that grow. Have you seen that? Have you seen like younger generations like react to your book in this way?
Yeah, I don't know how young people who've like responded to the book that I've experienced, I don't know how old they were. But I do feel like, I mean, I have a student right now who is queer and like is like verbally, like loudly explaining to like straight boys sitting near him in my community college English class, like all of the like issues of being queer. And like I talked to him about something once and he's like, oh, this will be good for like getting over my own shame. Like, and I was just thinking like, he's so like aware of his process and like so ready to be like, no, I'm going through this right now and I need all these resources. And I'm just like, I'm not worried about you at all because you even are framing it that way. Like you're already like a mile ahead of where I was at your age. So I'm just like, wow.
I mean, yeah, a person very close to me who, like, when I came out to him, was very like, originally was like, oh no, I don't know how to process this. And then years later was like, oh, I took a bunch of classes on, like, queer gender and sexuality, and learned so much more than I realized. And it was like, I was like, whoa, I never expected that. It's like I don't expect, like, younger people, and it was a person younger than me. I was like, I didn't expect that. And they were like, yeah, everyone in my age is doing that. Everyone, like all my friends, like his girlfriend was like already in that class, I think. And he was just like, yeah, she was telling me all these things that I thought was wrong and didn't realize. And he was like, it made me a better partner too to her, because I was able to, like, understand a lot of ways that I was being, like, problematic. So yeah, no, I think that's, like, I mean, have you taught your book to your class at all, or used your book as an example to your class?
That would be weird, but I've
No,
had students be like, "Oh, you're an author," and I'm like, "Oh." Um, but well, I was just gonna say, well, and I do think that like my book has been taught in some classes
Mhm.
because I've gotten invitations to speak in people's classes. Um, but I was gonna say, like, this all sounds as though this time that I've written about is like historical at this point.
Mhm.
But I do think that like all of the qualities of that time are still also here. We just
Mhm.
also have more resources. So in a way, you and I are not the same age, but both feel a little bit like we experienced something else that young people don't have. But they do have it. We just had it in a more concentrated amount. And I think
Mhm.
that like probably until the end of time, people will need to read stories that have like a more concentrated amount of like trying to figure everything out because there's not exactly the guidance necessary.
Yeah. I mean, always, daily, I'm like, oh yeah, it's only been like blah 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 since I was this many years since I was a teen. And then, like, I read something where I'm like, these kids are like, oh yeah, I just learned about what mm, I don't know, anything that existed in the early 2000s. Like, we just learned that this existed. Like dial-up. That was something I've heard recently. They were like, "Oh yeah, I just learned that dial-up existed. You had to, like, you couldn't use your phone while you were on the internet." And I'm just like, "Oh my god, I'm old. I'm so old." I'm like, I'm just aging myself all the time. Um, but like, yeah, you're right. It's a different time. It's historical. It's documentation of this time period that, like, doesn't necessarily exist anymore, which is great, I think. But I mean, to revisit that time period, do you miss it in any ways? Do you miss?
I would say mostly I probably don't because it was
Mhm.
like I think that something that happens when we get nostalgic is that we are ignoring or erasing the like very actually violent conditions of that time. And it's really easy to watch like I don't know, music videos of Evanescence or Garbage or stuff from the late 90s, early 2000s and just be like, oh, everything was so great. But it's like, oh my God, I was like sitting in my car crying like for an hour a day. And like, I don't know, like everyone was not uh, nice to uh, somewhat effeminate boys in
Mhm.
2002.
Oh
And
yeah.
WeHo was this horribly obnoxious place where like even being slightly out of the the homo norm was felt like really awful. Like I couldn't even step foot in West Hollywood without being brought to a state of abject shame. Not that it's that much better now, but at least how people are like identifying as non-binary and like being like work.
I was gonna say, yeah, and that's all changed. That's all different. We host a paradise now. No,
Now I'm just like, don't go away. We need some gay space to stay. Like, please, horrible place that makes me feel bad. Don't leave us.
No, that's the vibe. It's like, wow, I can be body shamed and kick in like it's the remember that like, oh god, this is outdated too, I guess, the no fats, no femmes, no all that, like no blacks, no Asian, like that trend on that. I'm like, it doesn't exist in the same way anymore. It exists, but not in the same way. But like, I mean, those are what those spaces feel like sometimes. But yeah, part of me is like, don't go, because that's it. That's what we have. And sadly, like, I want more. I want it. I want to keep kind of that. I want to keep these memories of a certain time period too, which I feel like, I mean, again, talking about like things that they were probably toxic, they were probably traumatic for a lot of people. And maybe it's that nostalgia speaking, but like, you know, yeah, right. I don't know. Maybe I am nostalgic. I feel like I went on a little tangent there, but yeah, nostalgia. Something about nostalgia.
It's interesting because we can long for something that was also very hard and cruel.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird, it's complicated. Yeah.
And a question I had with this book was, why end it at 2009? Like why couldn't it go further to like today for you?
It probably could have, but I saw it like this sort of story arc of that time had kind of run its course, with the character who is Nini, and also the internet story arc, I feel like had kind of run its course. Like right after where it ends, I mean, it would have been like a whole bunch of like job interviews and like meeting, like becoming more part of a writer community. There's a little of that in there though. Like definitely the third of the book has a more of like a what's called a Künstlerroman, which is like an artist's novel, artist's coming of age story vibe. There's a lot of like performance documented, but I think it would have gotten a lot more boring. Also, it would have turned into like Grindr. Is that the internet? I don't know. It's like
it's like, something. It exists somewhere.
I did like create a list of people I met since the book ended, and I tried to remember it from like a year ago, and I couldn't remember people very well. But yeah, I don't know.
I mean, I feel like from and tell me if I'm wrong, but it's like from that age, it was more important. The people that you met there were more important. Where now it's like, I meet on the internet 80 people a day, probably, if I wanted to. I could easily meet 80 people a day. And it's like, I'm being very, that's a very like, I feel like a very self like proclamation, like, yeah, I could easily meet 80 people a day. I'll rephrase, I hopefully can meet 80 people a day. But you know, when you're younger, it's more impactful. It's like, oh, these are the first people like me I'm meeting, and these are the first, you know, this is me wading in the water a little bit into like what I want to be, what I want to grow into.
Yeah. I'll also add that in 2009, I would say that's around the time that people meeting, because the constraint of the book is that I talked to them first online and then met in person. And I think starting in 2009, doing that mainstreamed. It became very common to do so. And so it no longer was like a special thing. although I don't think that my experience in general is like that special. I think like for the kind of like the age and community that I belonged to, it was actually very mundane. And the way that I've written this, I might have met more people than some people have, but actually like the whole point of having a book with a title that is sort of the constraint, the rule of how the book is written, is to sort of imply what is your people I've met from the internet, or what is your generation's version of meeting from the internet. Maybe like for somebody who's 16 right now, they could write people I actually met in person, or I don't know.
Oh my God, that's a challenge for all the teens listening, which, you know, if there are any, that's follow up this book with, reach out to Stephen, follow up that book with people you've met in real life, you know? That's, I mean, and thinking about, you know, in terms of the pandemic too, that's probably important for them too. I mean, did you revisit this book during that time during the pandemic time? And like, you know, getting to meet people on the internet, getting to see friends, family, your students on the internet, like, did that kind of make you more, you know, nostalgic maybe, or like just even revisiting that time period for yourself?
I think that like it was my age onward that people really started to like not necessarily know how to meet in person. Like I never was pushed into a situation where I had to cruise. Like there's like Alex Espinosa wrote this book Cruising, and you can see how like the circumstances really pushed him to like learn to be a cruiser. And I know I was like the very first age, you know, the very first generation, just maybe even by a year, to not have to learn in any capacity. And I feel like even the pandemic, I mean, this is a privileged position to have, but it felt very like regular and familiar to just be at home and almost just like kind of comfy. I know that other people did not have a comfy experience with the pandemic. So I have students living in like multi-family households where they were all like stuck at home with each other, and or like people having to work 2 full-time jobs through the pandemic. And like, oh, why would I wear a mask? Like I've been at work all day, not like I'm been out in the world all day.
Right.
Like sure, I'm gonna get the virus is like the mentality.
No, and I mean, yeah, it's been an interesting time, but like, yeah, I mean, what I'm glad for you that you you know, got to have that space, but also that you know, it was that for you. It was that very comfortable, familiar place. I mean, no, that's great. That's great. The last question I have for you, and it's kind of, I want to turn a question that I'm assuming you get a lot on its head in a way, because I'm assuming you get the question, what would you say to that younger person now as an adult, right? Am I right? Do you get that question a lot? What do you think the other way around would look like if that younger person came to you? What would, you know, what would they say? What do you think they would feel like?
Oh, I like that. Like if they were to, like, what should the younger person say to me?
Yeah.
Oh, well, I keep thinking about, I don't know. I had this professor who said, he said, the bedroom is the new urban, the living room is the new suburban, and going outside is the new rural. Um, and so I feel like maybe what somebody who's younger might say to me is like, go outside, log off, like stop being on social media. I think also like a vibe that I'm getting from younger people is like to just like be unapologetically yourself. I don't think this is like some like uh it's nothing new to anybody listening, but like we have like people are so much more like, this is who I am, and F you if you don't get it. I think that I still could learn that lesson a little bit more, to just be myself.
I bet if there are listeners out there who, you say it's like not, and I've heard, I mean, we've all heard that at one point in our life or another, but like, it's good to be reminded. It's good to like, it's one of those things that like, I feel like there are people who are like, yeah, I'm going to hear it once and know it, and I'm going to do it every day. No, it's, it's something that you need to keep affirming. It's an affirmation. But you think that's what your younger self would say to you?
Oh, my younger self.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying
a younger person.
A young person now. Oh, okay.
No, I mean a younger, but also that's a younger person. That is a, you know what? Maybe that is the answer for that. It was a good answer for a younger person. But yeah, do you think your younger self would say to you? Your younger self like got in a time machine and came today and got to say anything, ask a question maybe, or.
I remember feeling as a young person, sometimes meeting older gay men and queer people in general, thinking that they seemed a little hung up on, got caught in the snags of life. And I always thought like, oh, when I'm that age, when I'm in my 30s or 40s or 50s, I'm not gonna like get caught up in like the stupid drama of life, and I'm going to be like an authentic person, and I'm not going to be like filled with age shame or any kind of shame. And like I'm regularly catching myself be like, oh, that's like the I've like there's a vibe of like so and so that I met in like 2003, that I now in my late 30s I see in myself, and I'm like, oh, like, okay, maybe I need to not take myself so seriously and relax. And yeah.
I mean, enjoy yourself. And like, I feel like that's the younger person. I feel like the younger version of you would be very happy to like know that like, it oh God, to quote that campaign from another historical thing that we probably will dig up years ago. It gets better. God, that hurt to say. But like, yeah, no, I mean, it got better. It gets better. It changes. That's it. It changes. Things change.
It changed. Some things have improved. Some things, new challenges have emerged. But
and not even it gets better. I feel like you get better as you age. You get more reliable. You get more resilience. You get more empowerment. You get better. You get better. I'm gonna bring that campaign back with that phrase. You get better. I'm gonna get all those celebrities who did it before to come back and do it again.
Have you heard somebody say youth is wasted on the young or something like that?
Oh yeah.
I think that my younger self was probably looking at older people with a remove, like like in a way like, oh God, when I'm that age, I hope I'm not like that. And now I'm that age and I see why people were like that. But now I'm like, oh, youth is wasted on the young because I have all this wisdom now. But I don't know. I still feel like I have a friend who's like, oh, now that we're in our late 30s, we're too tired to do blah, blah, blah. I'm like, I'm not tired. Why are you tired? How did you get tired? Like, we're not 80. What's going on? I don't know. I think my younger self would be like, oh yeah, you're still like young.
Yeah. No, I mean, I still, there are times that's that younger self of me who like, didn't get to do things because I was hung up on something. I was being a kid and was like, oh, I'm too cool for that or blah, blah. Now, whenever I make choices, I'm like, I'm doing it for that young person who I like maybe I don't have the energy. Maybe I shouldn't go dancing because my knees are not as good as it used to be. But you know what? I'll care about that tomorrow because tonight I'm young. Tonight I'm young and I
Yeah.
can do it. So that's to everyone listening, go out tonight. Go party. Go party for that young person inside you who's still there and exists and, you know, deserves to be there. You're young. You're all young. I don't care how old any of you guys are. You're young. We're young. We're forever young.
And you know what's funny? It's funny, even I have students who are like 18 and refer to TikTok as something for that they're too old for. Like
Oh
everybody
God.
feels old. Even people who are dreadfully young think that they're old. We live in a culture that is just so obsessed with youth that nobody is young enough ever. Everyone is already too old. Like, oh, you're 8. It's too late for you to have your Mickey Mouse Club moment and become Britney Spears or Justin
Right.
Timberlake. Like,
Oh yeah. Oh, I look at like the Euphoria kids. I'm like, well, I passed my prime. It's them now. It's no, I get it though. It's very, but also I like being older. I like being able to be like, I'm okay with it. Like, I'm okay with the idea of like missing out on something because like, there'll be another thing probably, but also I'm okay to know that I can miss out. I can miss out and be okay. I like getting older. I'm okay with it. I'm making my peace. This is me convincing myself. I want everyone to know this is me convincing myself that I'm okay with getting older. And not crying every day. Um no, I think that's good advice. Yeah, to be like to feel young. To feel young. We're young. Look at our young selves. Look at our younger selves and be like, I'm still young. And then punch that younger self in the face because they're making fun of you.
and I'll just add one little thing. One thing that's really potentially wonderful about uh, like hookup culture and meeting people in queer spaces is that people can meet people that are very different ages and learn from each other because we're so stuck with people our own age.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to guess that like 90% of people that I see regularly are within 3 years of me in age. And
Mm-hmm.
we can learn a lot from our elders and the youth, like both directions.
I mean, I feel like people in my age group love TikTok for that reason because they're like, I'm hanging out with the kids, I'm hanging out with the young people, and the young people. Oh God, I sound like my grandfather. I'm hanging out with the teens and the Gen Z kids and they're like I mean it in a way that I feel like is non-threatening because in person I wouldn't. In person they scare me, but like on TikTok I'm like, wow, I just learned about like critical race theory from a 16-year-old and in a way that's fun, like behind like Dua Lipa's music. Like it's and like I love that like it's a we're who are in their 30s are able to now look back at the kids in their like teens and early 20s and say, I have a relationship with that. I know what they're talking about. I know what this means and I know what and I feel like I get them a little bit. We get them more. We're able to understand them more. And the other way around, where like I feel like the older TikToks are the same way. Where we're just like, I respect that this like 80-year-old farmer who like just hangs out with his animals, but also understands like gender studies. Like you're just like, oh wow, they exist. No, it's fun. It's fun. What I'm saying
I
is,
just
if
want to
you're,
say, yeah.
oh, no, go on. No, what were we saying?
Oh, I was going to say, I just want to say from a 90s perspective, who knew that the public access channel would have gotten so popular?
Right? It's not me. I would not have guessed. That was the channel I always skipped over, and now it's like the cool thing. I will never understand cool culture because it baffles me daily. But the kids, wow.
Socks with Crocs. I'm
Socks
still,
with Crocs are back, and the kids are bringing Crocs back, and they're like, we don't care what you guys say about it. They're comfortable and they're cool, and I'm just like, wow.
I always thought they were cool, but I never had the bravery to face everyone hating them. But Now I'm like, oh, now they're too cool. I can't wear them.
See, and now you have to, but you have to go for it now, because you got to be one of these cool, be a cool kid, one of these, they'll, one thing I realize is that the younger kids are also not afraid to like say if something's like, I feel like the 90s, early 2000s kids were like, oh, we can't be too cool. We got to be like, if you think it's cool, we have to like reevaluate it and make sure that it is cool. Now these kids are like, the Crocs are cool. That's like, if you're in your 30s wearing Crocs, they're like, no, you look great. They're very affirming. They're very like affirming to everyone, and I love that. Basically,
that is a big difference that you just pointed. It was back then. It was like, oh no, I can't act like I want to be part of the club. And now there's such a strong feeling of like, do you know the secret password, which is everywhere and everybody knows what it is?
Yeah.
But like, oh, I know what it is. I'm part of the club. Yeah.
I hope the Gen Z kids are listening to this and think I'm cool. I want them to be friends with me. I want this. What I'm saying is this is going to be a TikTok. I'm changing this whole platform to a TikTok, just so the Gen Z kids can be friends with me.
I'm sure they think you're cool. I'm sure they walk into SKYLIT and they're like, he is the coolest.
Oh my God, I could cry. I could cry. I hope. That's all I hope for from this endeavor, is to just be cool to Gen Z kids. Stephen, this has been amazing. This has been so much fun. And, you've made me feel young and cool and hip. Words that do not have anything to do with the younger generation anymore. No, but I mean, this has been great to like talk about, the culture from back then, but also your personal experiences too. Before we go, I just want to tell everyone listening, you can now currently buy Stephen's book, People I've Met from the Internet. I got the name right. I was like, I'm going to mess up one word there, but I didn't. You can buy Stephen's book right now at SKYLIT. You can go in. It'll be right up front in our podcast display right as this episode comes out. So please go there, grab a book. If you're 90s kids like us, you will just live in the past, but also really just live it through your story, Stephen, and understand like your own past maybe with that, and feel a connection there. So please stop by and grab yourself a copy. Stephen, would you like to say anything to the independent bookstore in your local bookstore community?
I'm just so happy that we have independent bookstores, and I was honestly very worried about them through the pandemic. And so I'm just so thankful for which places have survived and are still surviving and thriving. And we need these spaces. Selfishly, I need these spaces. I need a place to go and sit under an indoor tree and like read excerpts from random books. And yeah, I'm so thankful for SKYLIT Books.
Yeah. And I know a place that has an indoor tree where you can sit under. If you want to know more, come to SKYLIT Books and I can tell you where it is. That's me setting a trap for you guys to all come to SKYLIT. No, thank you again, Stephen. Thank you so much for, one, giving us this great book, and two, being just a fan of SKYLIT, and a regular customer there. We love, the local authors who come in, guys, it's crazy. We get some great people like Stephen who are coming in and sharing their amazing books with us. So thank you again, Stephen, for that. And to all my listeners out there, thank you so much for either returning or, coming here, listening for the first time. And I hope you come back and listen to another episode and tell your friends about it too. So so they can also be like shown these amazing authors that I get to speak with. A very lucky thing I get to do. But to all my listeners, you have a great rest of your day. Do something nice for yourself. And, I'll see you soon. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the SKYLIT Books podcast series. Please don't forget to visit our website at skylitbooks.com and make sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Also, don't forget to subscribe to this podcast for more author talks and bookseller conversations. You can find us on Podbean, iTunes, and Spotify. Stay safe and healthy, and we hope to see you back in our store soon.